Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. My name is Lisa Soto. I'm the Executive Director of the Marine Resources Council, and I am pleased and proud to be here to introduce our speaker. And I have a couple of announcements, and welcome to those of you on the Zoom webinar today as well. First announcement is we have been working with FWC and Marine Discovery Center and Florida Oceanographic. You need me to speak up?
Trouble hearing you, yeah.
Okay. The first announcement is that better? That our concrete creations are finally getting launched out in the lagoon, and we have 2 more volunteer workshops. If you want to help us build concrete reef structures that are going to be placed out in the Indian River Lagoon to accrete sand and try to attract oysters and other filter feeders and promote growth of seagrasses. We'll be building them this week. We have 2 volunteer workshops today at 3:30. So you want to just stick around till 3:30 or come back at 3:30. We'll be building concrete volcanoes today. And tomorrow, starting in the morning at 8 a.m., nice and cool. Come tomorrow morning at 8 if you would like to help contribute to building 175 concrete volcanoes that are going out into the lagoon in the next month. The summer camp registration is really starting to fill up. So if you if you have any kids or grandkids in your family aged 8 to 13 that you think would really benefit from having an experience of learning while exploring the Indian River Lagoon, go to our website. We've got 4 different programs that we're offering this summer, or you can talk to Caitlin after the event. She's involved with the summer camp, and then the rest of our summer camp team is in the back, but they've prepared another amazing summer adventure for kids age 8 to 13. So register now because they're filling up. The 4 different weeks are themed the Sea Perch, which is a remote operated vehicle the kids would build, and then a science team would use that vehicle to go out and collect samples. Really super cool. Survivor camp. So yeah, we're going to be doing survivor camp in the lagoon. The Circle of Life, which is about food chains and trophic interactions. And Earth to Sky, which is a really popular one. We talk about everything from the deep ocean to outer space. So those are the 4 themes for summer camp, and the girls have done a fantastic job putting it together so your kids and grandkids and neighbors and every nieces and nephews will really benefit from it, especially if they're little budding scientists, engineers, or people who like to do math and things. Last but not least, our Kids for Conservation virtual 5K that we're started up this spring is still going. So this is a cool opportunity to just participate in a 5K without having to, be at a finish line at some point. You can just do it on your own. Registration is still open until Earth Day.
May 22nd is the last day to register.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The last day.
So you can register and run anytime between now and May 22nd.
April 22nd. But you can register now.
You can run anytime between April 22nd and May 22nd, but you can register now or anytime up until that point. Did I get it right that time? Hey,
Yeah,
the 3rd time's a charm. All right. Well, thank you all again for being here. I'm going to introduce Mac McCandless. He is the Compost Coordinator at Keep Brevard Beautiful. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how he came to us, because I think his background is very interesting. His love for the world comes from the understanding that if you take care of your tools will take care of you. After growing up on his grandparents' farm, he joined the Army and served in an Arctic airborne unit in Afghanistan. Just think about that. I'm like, Arctic airborne Afghanistan. Besides being 3 A words, I can't see the connection there. So we have to talk to him. Seeing the Afghan people after years of war still surviving and even thriving despite the many challenges they face every day solidified Mac's vision to facilitate a better way of living for the world. After his military career, Mac moved to Florida with his wife and tiny baby. The baby's only 3 months old still, where he joined the KBB team who challenged him to build a self-sustainable compost program for our community that would provide easy participation for all. So with that, I want you to put your hands together for Mac McCandless. Thank you, Mac, for being here.
All right, make sure I'm in my square here. We're good? You see me all right? Cool. All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
No.
Nope. All right. How about now? I'm half deaf too. I've been around a lot of explosions. So yeah, I totally understand, but I'm really excited to share this information with you guys. I've been dying to talk to people about compost. I've been sitting in my office looking at dirt for months now, and everybody thinks I'm crazy. But so if I run through this and you guys have any questions as I go through it, if I breeze through or over something too fast, please feel free to ask me. There's a lot of information that comes with compost, but I will tell you, starting off, compost can be as simple or as complicated as you would like it to be. Compost works for your beginner composter just as well as it works for a composter that's been doing it for years. Whereas they might just, specify or make it a little more specific to what they're trying to achieve in their own gardens. So we'll start here. So I'm with Keep Brevard Beautiful. As you know, you've probably seen us around. Actually, we were at Beach and Boards just a few weeks ago. We had Bee-Bot out there trundling through the sand, filtering out microplastics. And so we have a lot of, let's see the button here. Uh-oh. To be expected. Ah,
There we go.
here we go. Now we're moving. All right. So we do a lot of beach cleanups and harbor cleanups, as well as roadside cleanups. We do a lot of work out there at Cape Canaveral and Jetty Park. We do lots of education on recycling for children in public schools, as well as pepper tree busting, pepper tree removal. And we do a whole bunch of other programs as well, lagoon-friendly lawns and so on. But we're here to talk about our most recent endeavor, which is organics composting. So when I was handed this program, it was already written out for me on paper. It had already gone through all the loops and all the people and all the signatures, which is great because I'm terrible at that stuff. So, but by the time I got it, it was time to build it. So let's see here, where to start. But you got to start simple. What is compost itself? And it's hard to define because compost is a collection of many things. But to put it simply, compost is decayed organic material. What is organic material? Pretty much everything that was once alive. Plants, trees, dogs, cats, me. I'm organic even though I'm drinking Red Bulls every morning. But yeah, it's all over the place and it all goes to the same place eventually. So for example, when a tree drops its leaf, it lands amongst a bunch of other leaves, and it lands amongst sticks and twigs and bug carcasses and little Jimmy Bob's lollipop that's been sitting there for 2 days. And then over time, these things succumb to microorganisms which begin to ingest and defecate and reproduce, as well as other bugs and worms. And the weather has, something to do with it as well. Eventually, all these things will be broken down into their most basic nutrients and begin to absorb into the soil. And before you know it, depending on the conditions on where that leaf has landed, the leaf and little Jim Bob's lollipop, as well as the paper stick, have become one in the soil for the same tree that dropped the leaf to absorb itself. It's really beautiful the way it works. It's a beautiful cycle. It's really the last step that everything that has lived on this earth has to take. We all returned to the dust. Let's see. Now, we'll talk a little bit about making compost. Now, man, this is where it gets dodgy. You can do this in 100 different ways. There are so many different ways that you can compost. You can do static composting, thermocomposting. You can do, what do they call it? Vermiculture composting, and so on. But so that we get a basic understanding of it, I'm sorry, here. I can hear my drill sergeant in my ear. Drink water. Roger. All right, so 3 things you need for composting, and it's real easy to remember because it's all the things that we need: food, water, and air. Pretty simple. So we'll start with food. And this is where we kind of start to get into the weeds a little bit. So when you're gathering food, or what most composters call feedstock, it's the bulk materials that you're putting, or that you're trying to decompose, basically. It is made up of carbons and nitrogens. A good example of your carbons is down there on that left side in that white square, you'll see straw. Straw is a good source of carbons, woods, sawdust, cardboard, really, tree products. Most of everything that comes off the tree is rich in carbon. So the second half of that, which will make up your foods, is your nitrogens. Your nitrogens, also known as your greens. You'll hear a lot of people say often they refer to their carbons and nitrogens as browns and greens. So your nitrogens come from, well, we're going to get them from food scraps mostly. So your lettuce, your tomatoes, all the stuff that you trimmed off of the things that you eat and throw in the garbage. Coffee grounds are awesome, super high in nitrogen. Different manures, but you got to be careful. You can use horse manure all day long. However, if the grass that horse ate has a whole bunch of pesticides and herbicides and stuff, guess what? It's going to the garden. You can't use it. So you got to be really careful when you're using animal manure. Let's see. So in the composting world, we talk about the golden ratio, the ratio of carbons to nitrogens, the CN ratio, and it is 3 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. So what does that look like? A real rudimentary example would be 3 buckets of hay or straw, that's our carbons, our browns, to 1 bucket of food scraps that I picked up from one of our members in the day. So we're measuring them by mass. This would qualify as a balanced pile. The next step is water. How much water should we be putting in our compost piles? And well, if you get too much in your compost piles, then it can't breathe. It'll become slimy. It'll become mucky. If you grab it and you're molding it like clay, it's way too wet and it probably smells really bad too. That's because it's gone anaerobic, and I'll explain that further what that means in a little bit. But also, you don't want your compost too dry. If it's too dry, it's really not going to do much. It's going to sit there. It'll decompose over time, but a lot slower. So experts say you want to keep it between 40 and 60%. A lot of people say 50% moisture content in your compost pile. But what does that mean? What does 50% moisture in a pile look like? Well, even the experts say they use this phrase, a wrung out sponge, a lot. So if you grab a handful of compost, it should compact a little bit. And as you squeeze it, you might see some water pooling in between your knuckles and your fingers, but there shouldn't be any dripping. That's 50% moisture content. That's where you need to be. Which brings us to air. How do you get air into a compost pile? How do you even quantify how much air you need in a compost pile? Yes, how? By turning it. This is also known as aerating the pile. So turning the pile is simply just stirring it up. So as these materials degrade and break down, they tend to mat up and get squashed together, and they close up all the gaps, which most refer to as the porosity of the pile. You want to make sure that there's plenty of gaps inside the pile for the microorganisms to breathe oxygen, which we're going to get into that a little more too as well. But most people are simply just stirring their piles up and then putting some more carbons on the outside to keep it kind of insulated. This is the most common way that people do it for sure. I get this question a lot. People are confused about what the heat from the compost is, where it comes from, why it's important. So let's see here. Let's go there. This is why. And now we're getting really complicated. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not a microbiologist, but I'm gonna try and break this down for you. So we are, I'm not going to use my laser because Zoom can't see it. So we're not actually farming this magical soil amendment. We're farming microorganisms, and we're farming very specific microorganisms, which are called aerobic microorganisms rather than anaerobic. So what that means is an anaerobic microorganism doesn't require oxygen to live, whereas an aerobic microorganism does. Now, why do we want it to be aerobic? Because as soon as your pile goes anaerobic, meaning there's no more oxygen in there for your microorganisms to consume, a whole new class of MOs are moving in, and they're going to start breaking that stuff down anaerobically and release methane. That's what you're smelling, the nasty smell that comes from a pile that hasn't been managed properly, that smell that you're getting from the landfill. It's all methane. And believe it or not, methane is 20 times, how do I word this, holds in 20 times, traps 20 times more heat than carbon dioxide. It's a greenhouse gas, and it's one of the worst. And our landfills are just pluming with the stuff. There are landfills that capture this methane gas and use it as a fuel source. But if you ask me, you shouldn't have to. You should be composting. So let's see here. All right, how to pile or not to pile? Let's see here. So a proper pile starts with the number 3 rule, 3 by 3 by 3 feet, or a cubic yard. That's usually when things really start to heat up due to all the mass. So the heat, I forgot to mention, the heat is coming from your microorganisms as they are feeding on your biodegradable material. They're eating, they're defecating, and they're reproducing. These things are absolutely tiny. They're microorganisms, but there's so many inside that pile that if you do it right, the body heat that these MOs are putting off will get your pile up to 160, 170 degrees, which is crazy. It just comes out of nowhere almost. So you'll see people turning their piles, stirring their piles, and that's where all that steam is coming from. It's coming from the heat inside of the pile. And that's a good indicator that you're doing it right. Let's see here. So here are some examples of some real easy piles that people make. On the left there, you've got some chicken wire, some wire bin piles. These are really common. They're great because they let air in on your compost. Whatever the part of the compost that is exposed to air on the outside gets air a foot in, so they say. In the middle there is a wooden compost bin. Most people make those out of pallets. A pallet makes a really good cubic yard, and it's super easy to put together. You just zip 4 sides together with 4 screws, and then you can start putting stuff in there. And then that last picture over there is just a pile on the ground. People do this all the time. Most of the time you'll see people who are doing passive composting, they'll pile on the ground. Passive composting is when somebody, they're trying to get some compost for their garden, but they're not trying to meet any quotas. They're just going to leave it over there, let it do its thing. You know, decomposure happens all around us all the time, whether we're watching or not. And so will that little pile over there. But if you're actively composting, which means you're paying attention to the heat, you're paying attention to the moisture, you're paying attention to your ratio that you put in the pile, then that pile will heat up real fast and you will begin turning it. So really what we're doing is we're taking the Earth's natural processes, basically Earth's garbage disposal, and we're turning it up a notch. That's actually my pile right there. It's in West Melbourne. It's tiny, but yeah, it's, you know, we've got to start somewhere. But yeah, there are hundreds of different methods in which you can compost. You can really tailor this to however you want to make it. You can make your bins at any size. You can have them this size, or you can have your bins hold tons of material. Literally, people are moving around compost with big backhoes and stuff. It's pretty amazing, really. Yes, science and an art. As I said before, it just depends on how crazy you want to get with it. You know, do you want to dive into the science and make sure that this compost is specific to your specific tomato, or are you just trying to grow some stuff? It's really up to you. So this is where our newest compost facility is going to be, there in West Melbourne. You can see there's 192 there going across east to west. Just south of that is 551 Park Hill Boulevard. That's where our facility will be. There's a little closer up. If you go straight up on Park Hill Boulevard from Post 1, the intersection of Park Hill Boulevard and 192, there's an Advanced Auto Parts. So there's a little placeholder there for you. So if you're lucky, when you get down there, you might see this box jutting out of the ground, this absurdly green box. So this box actually, we almost got for free. We got this 53-foot box for $500 simply because it fell off a shipping container and got dented. Boxes nowadays, after shortages, dude, I don't even know. They're like tens of thousands. So we were able to repurpose it, whereas it was just sitting in a yard, rotting away. Let's see here. So we're doing what's called an aerated static pile. So you'll see 4 cutout holes on the right side of that container. The 3 on the left are for compost. The one on the right is for harboring my carbons. So our piles go into these bays, which house our aeration system, which I think we've got a slide that'll explain that a little better. But we've got our chipper over there on the end. So I get lots of scrap wood from a guy in Merritt Island who makes custom furniture all the time. He uses a lot of wood. He's always throwing it out, and he usually just goes to the landfill. And when biodegradable material goes to the landfill, as I just told you, it's going to get packed down, it's going to be buried, it's going to go anaerobic, it's going to stink. But this way, with an aeration system, we don't have to turn our pile to get air into it. So these pipes down here, those orange pipes you might see down there at the bottom of those 3 bays, are perforated all the way down, and they're plugged into a system in the back of the container, which has 2 bouncy house fans back there. We're basically just shoving air into the pile to make sure that those proper microorganisms are going to stick around, they're comfortable, and they're going to break down my materials super fast. We're just trying to keep them comfortable, really. Yeah, that our cement pad right there, that's where, so we'll talk more about the membership, where our members will be given one of these buckets, which come with some instructions on the back. We'll show you exactly what we're composting and what we're not composting. And if for some reason you still got questions, that's my phone number right there. You can call. Oh, Can you hear it? You see it? All right. Yeah, that's my phone number right there. You can call it. I dare you. I'll answer. Let's see here. So this explains the aeration system a little better. The pile sits on top of that tube. You see those perforated spots there, and it just shoots the air straight up inside of it. It does this on certain intervals so that it doesn't dry the pile out. And we just, also, I recently learned that you could measure moisture and temperature remotely with these wireless probes here. So that probe there on the right, I stick into the compost pile. The probe's on a long cord that'll reach down into the core of my compost pile so that I can tell the temperature and the humidity. That probe sends a signal to this tag manager there on the left, which then sends a signal to my phone and graphs it for me. It's pretty sweet. It's like super easy. So yeah, this is a screenshot that I took from my phone with the programming. And when I ordered the tag manager and the probe, it breaks it down for you Barney style. You can't mess it up. Like, it's so easy. So it graphs it all for you. I didn't quite have it calibrated. You could probably see that. It's trying to measure the temperature in my apartment right there. But, you know, just for demonstration purposes, you can see I could be anywhere in Florida and be looking at my piles and saying, oh, you know, pile 2 is not doing so hot. I'll call up post 1 and say, hey, put some water in that pile. Done. So we designed this, this whole facility with the 3 R's in mind, the 3R initiative. Where are you at? Reduce, reuse, recycle. We're reducing materials that are going to the landfill, and thus we're reducing greenhouse gases with compost. I didn't know that when I first started looking into this. That's insane. With compost, we can make the air quality better. That's insane. 90% of post 1, that's what we've nicknamed our facility here, because this facility is one of many to come very soon, actually. Titusville, Palm Bay, Cape Canaveral, SpaceX, Suntree Country Club, all want their own posts right now. I told them they're gonna have to wait because we're building post 1. But 90% of post 1 is reclaimed materials, as I told you about the container itself. That sign there, we had to buy the banner, of course, it was specially made, but the sign itself is made all from scrap wood that I just found around. FWC has been doing lots of great things for the manatees down there, feeding them lettuce and stuff, so I've heard. Well, they're getting everything in on pallets and in boxes, and then they're just sending it to the landfill. So I said, hey, you know, send those pallets my way. I need building materials. I've got multiple stacks of pallets, and that's what I built most of the structures that I have there on post 1 with. Even the bays themselves are structured out of the cutouts from the side of the container. They were used to make the walls of the bay. This side, you'll see on the far left side of the container where the sign is, that is a storage area for the tractor, you know, other hand tools and everything else, things that I used to build, your pitchforks, all that good stuff. Recycle. We're bringing food full circle. You trim your tomato, you send me the trimmings, I put it in the dirt. I give you this beautiful soil amendment, you grow yourself a new tomato, and then give me some more scraps. That's amazing. That's awesome. It's too easy, it's amazing. Let's see here, but the age-old question, why? People still ask me, why compost? I've been putting my food in the trash for years. That hasn't bothered me. Well, of course not. But so to them, man, I say a lot of things. To me, it's, well, to KBB, it's about ownership. Ownership is not the acceptance of blame, but rather the commitment to progressing towards a resolution. And that's what we plan on doing with organics composting. We are not at fault. Well, correction. Technically, we're all at fault for the condition of the lagoon. If we're not directly involved with its current state, well then, bad on us for turning the other cheek. We should be composting. We should be doing better. Oh, one more for the why. If you own a Salt Life logo, you should be composting. I said it. Come on. You love the water. We got to take care of it. This is one of the ways to do it. Composting is not going to solve the entire problem in the lagoon, but man, it's a good start. It's one of the many right answers that are going to go into the big picture of cleaning up the lagoon entirely. So, what can compost do for the soil, especially around here in Brevard or Florida? We've got very sandy soil, and it doesn't take much to find it. You go like 1.5 feet down, maybe even less, and you're finding sand. Compost will add some porosity and some heft, some nutrients to that sand, and kind of help it to retain its water as well as its nutrients, and it will decrease runoff. It normalizes your soil's pH level. So if it's high alkaline, high salt, it will help dilute all that and normalize it. It releases its nutrients slowly rather than being swept off by the next rain and then ending up in the lagoon. It sticks there. It's natural. It was designed to be there. It improves soil porosity and thus aeration, thus making way for stronger root systems. So as you're creating small gaps within the soil and you're adding all these soil amendments that are hanging out, releasing these nutrients that wouldn't otherwise be available, it's also making some routes for these roots to grow strong. You don't have to use it as often as fertilizer, and it's twice as better. It's twice as good. I think I heard, or I saw somebody say I'm trying to remember now. I think it was 10 acres. You only needed 1 acre. You only needed one cubic yard of compost, and you probably only do it once a year. Oh, and we're reducing methane released into the air. That is so crucial. Oh, you saw that slide earlier. Just pointing out over there, it talks about manure and food waste. You'll see a little illustration of a fish there. Don't put those in my bucket, please. There's instructions on our buckets that tell you exactly what we're composting so that you know what you're getting. The County of Brevard knows what they're getting. Let's see here. Oh, yep, there it is. So how does the program work? We're doing a curbside pickup service. So it's not a subscription, it's a membership. When you pay that small fee every month, you are a member of KBB, you are a composting member. You're gonna get some of that compost. You're gonna get all the information that you could possibly need. Literally, you don't have to call that number on the bucket just to ask me what's going in the bucket. If you've got any questions at all pertaining to compost, I would be glad to help you, because I'd rather you compost at home than not compost at all. Oh, weren't ready for that. Man, I blazed through that. That was way too fast. All right. So we have any questions?
Give Mac a round of applause. Thank you so much for that awesome presentation. Steve is going to be walking around in the building here to gather some questions, and then we're going to be taking questions from the Q&A on Zoom. So please avoid using the chat and rather use the Q&A. All right. So our first question is about sun exposure. How much sun exposure does a compost pile take?
How much?
Ideal sun exposure for a compost pile?
That's a good question. Most compost piles just hang out in the sun. It doesn't really matter the amount of exposure that it gets. It's not a factor. The heat comes from the microorganisms, not from the sun.
So it can be in shade?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Some places say needs direct sun to get heated up. Other places say
No. The heat is coming from the microorganisms. The heat is what's telling you, okay, I've got the right microorganisms in here. No, the sun won't make a difference in that.
All right. Can you compost weeds? And what about weed seeds?
You can compost weeds and weed seeds, but it's extremely dangerous if you're going to be giving it to people's gardens. You got to do it a very specific way. So you want to make sure that your pile is going to get, I think it's above 140 degrees, no, correction, 130 degrees for at least 3 days to ensure that those seeds are sterile. In that time, it's actually killing off bad pathogens and bad bacteria as well, which is super important before you start using your compost.
Awesome. What area of Brevard County can participate?
Right now, just West Melbourne. So the plan is to have satellite posts all throughout Brevard. As I told you, there's multiple people who want it. And we want to make it possible. If I had it my way, everybody in Brevard would be using compost instead of fertilizer. And that's our goal.
Awesome. I think it's a great goal to have. Can non-residents purchase a bucket and deliver their waste to the center?
That's a question for the boss, but I'm gonna say why not?
So the answer is yes for now. Boss,
Yeah, bring me your greens. I don't care. I need it.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the program? What's the cost for becoming a member and how do you sign up?
So, I hate talking money. So it's $30 a month, and I get the same reaction out of that. I'm like, yeah, $30. That's quite a chunk. $30 is the new $15, just like 20 is the new 10. I mean, what can you get for $30 nowadays? A quarter of a tank of gas, maybe a bag or two from Walmart, a decent haircut, maybe for $30. Or instead, you could spend $30 a month and you'll get one of these buckets. You fill it up with your food scraps, leave it out on the porch. We'll come by, give you a fresh new bucket, take your stuff with us to the compost plant and make compost out of it. Super easy. And you're going to get some of it too for your garden.
Well, I think it's great too, considering the price of that versus the cost of fertilizer. And you're saying compost goes a lot further. So
Oh yeah.
you're spending your money more wisely. All right. How do you keep raccoons out of compost piles? Another nature, I guess.
That's a really good question, actually. So
they're aerating.
yeah, aerating. Yeah. We aerated a lot. No. So you can put lids on your bins if you want to. I like to put like the big stuff, things that I've just added to my pile. I like to try to get it in the middle, in the core where it's hot, so it'll really start to break down faster. And it's not going to be, attractive to any rodents and stuff like that. But every composter that I've talked to says that rodents really aren't a problem as long as it's staying aerobic, because as long as it's aerobic, it's killing that smell. It's not releasing methane at all, and they're not interested in it.
All right. I know you spoke a little bit about animal manure, and you're wanting to make sure that if they are eating grasses that have had pesticides or herbicides on them, we wouldn't want to compost that. But is there a best method to composting those horse manures, cow manures, assuming that they don't eat grass that's been fertilized or used pesticides?
So as long as you've got your carbon to nitrogen ratio right, you really can't go wrong. However, nitrogen and carbon contents for different materials, can range, and you can find those on Google pretty easily. Manure is a lot higher in nitrogen than some scrap lettuce, and so is coffee. Coffee's a lot, or maybe a little less than manure. I think it is. Coffee grounds it is, but yeah, as long as you look up the ratios and you've got your ratio, your nitrogens and carbons right, you've got plenty of water in there, and you're turning it, you're good.
Awesome. What is the value of manufactured products claiming to be compostable?
Wow. Can you ask that again? I'm trying to.
What's the value of manufactured products claiming to be compostable? So I think this person's referring to the cups and straws and food utensils.
So there was a lot of talk about this in the beginning of our program. At first we wanted to use compostable bags to put in these buckets. So that people could bag them up. We could take it, just throw the bag into the compost pile. And some people do it that way. But what happens is, whereas those bags do decompose and break down, they break down super slow. So you'll probably have little bits and pieces, like where you tied the knot, it'll stick around for a while. And if you're not careful, you'll have, little bits and pieces of these compostable materials just hanging out in your garden. It's not necessarily bad for them, but it just doesn't look good. So we're not using those bags. We're using food.
Awesome.
Oh, there's a question over here.
Leave it at this because you're talking about paper, but styrofoam, which is a huge problem, actually a kind of mealworm that will eat styrofoam.
Do they survive it?
I think I could not get from the article any information about what kind of mealworm it was. I just found it interesting that they found it looks more like not like a worm, more like a grub, a little bit of a harder shell, and it was eating. They showed it in the bin. Yeah. Bin this size with styrofoam in it, and it ate it in like a few days.
That's awesome.
Those are really good.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, we're open to all sorts of methods. Yeah, I mean, I'm constantly learning different methods and different ways to apply compost and the knowledge that I found. Phase 1 of organics composting was just getting it built. We don't have to have a perfect answer. We just need to get some progress. Progress breeds progress. So phase 2 is where we're at now, getting it operational, getting the members in, getting the food scraps. Phase 3 is all about education. We want everybody to know about composting. We want it to be the new fad that lasts forever. To answer your question a little better, I plan to have multiple methods of composting on post 1 as well as the other posts, so that there can be field trips that'll come in, they'll see vermiculture, they'll see hot composting, they'll see passive composting, and all sorts of other stuff like that. So yeah, we definitely really want to keep post 1 versatile.
What happens if it rains a lot, like we've been having recently? Torrential rain, do you need to cover it?
So you can cover your pile with, a lid that you fashioned together. You can cover it with a tarp. Well, you can't see the container now, but we're keeping water off of our piles with the container. You don't want your pile to get too wet. If it gets too dry, that's pretty easy to fix. But if it gets too wet, it's really hard to dry out. Personally, I would just crank up my aeration system and hope that, and hope for the best. But you want to try and keep excess water out of your compost, or it'll go anaerobic, and you'll know immediately when it does because you're going to smell it. Yeah.
What else about your post-one facility is sustainable? Do you have solar panels?
Oh yeah. Gosh, I breezed over that. Yeah. So Argo Sciences has been working with us because we got a grant from Ember Air for $7,500 for solar energy, and it's a reoccurring grant. So as we make these other posts, they're gonna pay for the rest of our solar panels. That was my biggest sell when I was talking to the boss about this program. I said, if we're gonna be doing organic stuff, this post has to be self-sustainable. It's just gotta be. We're not there yet. I'd say it's about 95% there. We're still using tractors, and I think that's the only, so the chipper uses gas. So we're using a little bit of fuel, but I'm looking into processes so that we can oust those. So we're collecting solar energy to run all of our aeration system, as well as all of my tools for building and stuff like that, lighting. We're collecting a lot of our own rainwater to water the piles with, as well as we are tapping into the local fire department because every couple of days they drain their tanks just to keep everything cycled. Well, they just drain it right into the yard. But now they're going to come over to post one and fill up my water tower. So where water was going to be wasted, we're going to use it to make more compost.
Awesome. Can you compost any seafood waste?
Any seafood waste? Anything that was once living can be composted. That doesn't mean I'm composting it, but yes.
Okay. And any other, I guess, quick ideas on things to add to the pile besides fresh produce? So something that you would easily have in your kitchen.
Coffee grounds. Coffee grounds are great. People love coffee. Man, I get a metric ton of coffee grounds from 7-Elevens. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's a question back here.
Yeah, too, actually. Talk about coffee grounds. For those of us who don't drink coffee, what about, opening the tea bag and you got tea leaves?
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah. You can, pretty sure I wouldn't be so sure about the tag that's on the tea bag, but you can throw the whole, or you can throw the whole tea bag in there if you like. Yeah, as long as the tag on the tea bag itself isn't, like shiny, it's got some kind of gloss on it or something like that. But yeah.
And the other question, early on, very early in the program, you or somebody else mentioned concrete boxes going into the lagoon or something. And I kept kind of thinking, okay, they're going to show a picture of it.
That was not with the public for the lagoon.
Well,
It was a woman that was introduced.
Oh yeah, I don't have anything to do with that. Sorry.
All right. Well, it looks like we have one more question. So this one is
over here. Dan, you got a question?
Anyone else?
I was just gonna say, make sure though, before we finish, is what can we do to help you get compost 2, 3, 4, 5?
Oh man, that's a good question.
Can you repeat his question?
Oh, okay. So Dan from West Melbourne is asking what people can do to help us get these posts up faster. Is that right?
Correct.
Man,
And they will come.
that's donations. Donate money, donate materials, donate food scraps. That's what's going to make it grow.
Where do they
Yeah.
do those donations?
Oh man, contact KVB office. Yeah. And we'll situate it. We'll figure it out. Yep.
One other question, there's some companies doing this now, but spreading compost on lawns versus using fertilizer.
Mhm.
So I was just wondering, is that any better for the lagoon and the ocean as far as you're putting all those nutrients down? Does those cause any harm to the lagoon?
Nope.
And so it's way better than these.
It is 110% better. Yeah. Yeah. It slowly releases these nutrients and it's so much more natural, minus all the chemicals. It doesn't run off and wash out super easy. It sticks around to give the plants the nutrients that it needs.
Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
I got a lot of questions. So what is a good rule of thumb to know when parts of your compost pile are actually ready to use? I mean, just.
That is a good question. So color is a good indicator. Once you're, once you stop recognizing the things that were once in your pile, like, I put an orange in there, I've got some lettuce and stuff in there. Once it's all starting to look like dirt, it's time to make a windrow, what we call. It's just a really long pile, and we let it sit there for a month or two to cure. And what's actually happening is more microorganisms are moving in and out, and the pile itself is equalizing and becoming a pH balance, basically, finishing off the compost. But it'll be a dark brown to a black. Yeah. But yeah, it's actually a really quick process. Earlier, we showed a picture of my small little pile out there at post 1. I put a ton of coffee grounds in there one day. The next day, I could still see the coffee grounds and pull them out, but they don't smell like coffee anymore. They smell like dirt. They're already being broken down.
All right. Well,
There's a question over there. It's Bill, right?
Yeah, Bill.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, can you put shredded paper in that bucket?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I need some brown. So.
Yeah, have at it. You can put your mail in there if you want to. Just nothing glossy, and please pull the plastic out of your envelopes. I'll just put my envelope in some water, let it soak there for a minute or two, and just grab it out of there. It comes right out. Yeah. You got any other questions?
Okay, great. We have one more from Zoom, or more from the audience actually here, that we'll just go through and then we'll be all done. So if you just go over one more time how often the bucket is picked up, and just if you want to just recap a little bit on how to sign up for the program.
Yeah, so we're actually still working that out. We want it to be super easy to get into. The plan is to have it so that you can go on the KBB website and sign up there. And we have a KBB app as well. If I have it my way, the plan is to have it so that in your composting app, you can, push a button that will tell me that your bucket's ready to pick up. So it's gonna hurt for me because my route's gonna change every hour, but you let me know when you're ready to give me your stuff and we'll come and get it.
Right on. We just have one more question come in. What's the name of the wireless temperature probe device?
I think the company's called Wireless Tags, something like that. Yeah, they just call them wireless tags.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for having me.